You got you ready? Zebo's ready. We got Coach Baldwin. He'll start with a couple comments and take the next questions.
Yeah, just coming off really good Tuesday in terms of how the guys approached it. And like I said, I think to be 3 weeks left in the season and a ton to play for, the guys feel that. But they're, that's that perfect mixture of they want to get the taste out of, a loss last week. Granted, it was against a very good WSU team, but they want to get that and work hard to earn a victory against a very good USC team, and we know will be a tough ball game, but excited about that challenge.
What are you seeing in USC's defense? Taking a look at the film.
Size up front and size, skill, athleticism up front, and then you start going through each level. Experience at linebacker, also size. Great, not just good, very good tacklers in that way, and a secondary that can play multiple coverages. And that's a skill set. That's a skill set, and they're well coached, so they have the ability to. Some teams, lean a little more on man or lean a little more on zone. They can do both at a high level. So it's going to be a challenge for our offense, and we just have to be up to the task in terms of knowing that we're going to be up against a very good physical matchup, whether it's size or speed, on every snap offensively.
You've talked about struggling running on the road before. Is there anything you do to tinker with some of the offensive line as far as getting that going? Yeah,
there's nothing really you can do. I just think sometimes people, forget that when you go on the road in certain situations, your snap count might be, on a silent count of some sort, or might have to be a little bit different. So sometimes it's harder to get that tempo and that you want coming off the ball. So, but it's never an excuse either. We've gone on the road a couple different times. Felt good about how we ran the ball at Oregon State. Felt good about how we ran the ball at BYU. And there were even moments last week. I give the Cougars credit; they did a good job up front. But there were moments, where I think we, could have been better, but we still did certain things effectively running the ball. So there's no excuse for us. The challenge isn't going to be the fact that we're playing at USC or they're playing here. The challenge is going to be who they are on defense and what they are. So that'll be the biggest thing for us, that we know that we're up for a big challenge.
Coach mentioned you were looking for a little bit of spark and bringing Brandon in the second half in the game. Going forward, how do you deal with the fact that there's been about 5 games in a row where there's been some real critical turnovers? How do you mitigate that?
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's not as much for me, and I know what you're saying. It's as much as you're trying to find sparks within the offense. It's not that Chase is doing anything wrong, but Brandon is obviously someone that when you look at the course of a season, he's been, one of the more explosive players in terms of number of touches compared to, explosive plays. So some of the things we were doing is no different than, handing off to a tailback. You hand off to a tailback, or Brandon comes in and runs the ball. Either way, it's the same type of deal. You're just putting it in his hands. And then some of the shots that he threw, and that's the other thing people sometimes forget. You remember the last play, and how that went, but he also put us into, field goal range a couple different times. He hit a 35-yarder or however long that was to Mo down the sideline, and another time we had Vic on a possibly double move, because bringing him in, you get certain singled up looks, and that's the other thing. So you're trying to play to advantages that way, where you can get the singled up look that you want, and they ended up, I think, either PI or holding on Vic. We also moved into field goal range. So it was as much strategic to try and get into sparking the offense itself, not necessarily we need a spark, but it was part of the game plan going into it.
Does there come a point where some of the risks of because he's been more turnover prone come into play for you in the decision making process?
You always have to think about that, but it just depends. It's like I said, if it wasn't for the last play, then the risks would have been worth it because of the big play hits to Mo and the penalty. So it's always easy to come back and say that and there's risks with anything. You want to sit back and be safe. Well, sometimes that doesn't. Sometimes do great things don't happen when you do that. So it's a fine line. Of course you have to weigh that, but I have confidence. When we have confidence, and I wouldn't change the last play just because of the end result. No different than I would change a couple of the plays he made, and he's made all season. It's just, we got to continue cleaning certain things up.
So you're thinking it's pretty much the same as far as your utilization?
We'll see. We'll just feel it, feel it out in the game, and feel it out during the week of practice, and how we think that goes. Because for 2 games, really, Brandon came in and never threw a pass. I think he threw 1 bubble screen. So it just kind of depends on what we feel like, gives us an advantage and gives us a chance.
Can you talk a little bit about the running back rotation? You had Marcel plays some really nice snaps early in the season. He hasn't really been playing much at all. Chris has been kind of a big back change of pace guy. Going forward, are you going to look to play Marcel a little bit more, maybe Chris a little bit more, or are you going to lean on Pat a lot still?
It depends. I mean, obviously, I think, you felt it in the UW game that it was the right thing to do, lean on Pat, just the flow of that game and only running 60 snaps. You felt like that was right. Last week, we probably could have been times where Chris could have, played a little bit. Marcel's still coming back, from an injury, and came back from that injury. That's part of the reason, he went from getting a few carries early and then not playing, was he was still coming off that injury. So, I definitely could see, I wouldn't foresee the next 3 games being similar from a running back standpoint as what the last 2 were. So, how that plays out, we'll see. But I definitely can see more of a, a form of a rotation than what we saw in the last 2.
How much are you inhibited by the injuries on the wideouts? Inability of the
Oh, it's, like I said, injuries happen. I don't feel like it's inhibited as much as, guys like, especially on the outside position, Mo and Vic just know we got to go a lot of reps. That's just, that's where we're at, and I trust that. I mean, we were close to finding a way to win on the road again with a situation where, we didn't have a lot of wide receiver rotation, especially at the outside wide receiver position. Those guys just know. But they, they stepped up. They made plays. They made plays also against UW, that helped us in a win. They made plays against Oregon State on the road that helped us in a win. We still didn't have much rotation there. So, at times, sure, you'd love to have more depth, but those 2 guys are grinding. And those 2 guys are battling on the outside, and then you got a couple younger guys that could fit into the mix on the outside. And then obviously, with Nico and Jeremiah inside with Conavai out, they're going to continue to get reps and continue. You saw it with Nico. He took some steps forward in this last game. So I'm just excited about the guys that are on the field more than I worry about any injuries that have happened. I want guys to be able to come back, but at the same time, I get pumped up for the guys that are out there on the field and they're laying it on the line.
Did it affect your play calling at all?
Sometimes it affects maybe how much tempo or certain things you want to do just because you don't have as much of a rotation. In terms of that, it may have an effect on that occasionally. But in terms of, let's say, the 2 outside guys that played the snaps last week, Vic and Mo, affected nothing. I was ready to throw the post corner to Mo, just he came down and caught it, ready to throw, about anything, in terms of Vic, when you think back on it, a middle screen, a couple deep throws, some things that way. So, no, it doesn't, because, we got 2 guys that I trust and I count on the field at outside, and then young guys inside are, coming every week. Especially you saw that with a freshman and Nico, because Jeremiah had already played a little bit, but Nico's really starting to get some reps, and he played like a veteran. I told him that too, and I appreciate that. He did. He played the game like a veteran, and you felt it.
Conavai was listed as a starter. Is the prognosis a little bit better for him to come back?
Yeah, it could be. We'll see how all that goes. But again, I try not to even think about it or worry about what I don't control. Because I have no control on that. And if he is, that's great. Obviously, we want him back. But if he's not, we're prepared to go with the crew that we had last week, and away we go.
Do you feel like some of the younger receivers, like a Monroe Young or a McAllen Castles, could force their way into the rotation for the last couple of games?
Yeah, it's possible. McAllen's still a tight end, though, so that's a different position. But you could definitely see McAllen play a couple, possibly Monroe, and do that. So, yeah, that could happen. But, again, it just kind of all depends on the flow of the game and ultimately what we think gives us the best chance to win.
Justin brought up the possibility, he didn't say conclusively anything, but the possibility anything's on the table of possibly looking at other guys, maybe a defensive guy to put on for a player or 2 or something. Have you thought about that at all for more explosive players?
Oh, we talk about certain things that might fit, but nothing. Anything that's concrete. Probably wouldn't talk about it anyway if we did. I mean, realistically. So
first, we notice if you see it on the field.
Yeah, you'll notice if you see it on the field, and defense probably will too. I mean, to some extent.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Chase.